Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. They came for his cabin with smiles, clipboards, and fake laws. What they didn't expect was a war-hardened ex-Marine who doesn't play nice when strangers cross his fence. In the quiet mountains of Nevada, one man takes on an HOA empire with bourbon, a shotgun, and zero patience. They say peace and quiet are luxuries these days. Out here in the mountains of central Nevada, they're just part of the air. That first breath I take when I step out of my truck at the end of the long gravel path, thick with pine, dry grass, and a hint of gun oil from the back seat, that's the reason I keep coming back. My name's Travis Holden, 42 years old, ex-Marine. I run a gunsmith shop down in Fallon, keep to myself mostly. But this cabin is mine. My father built it with his own damn hands, and his father before him laid the first stones of the foundation. One way or another, this chunk of earth in the middle of nowhere has been in the Holden family since the Great Depression. And no one, I repeat, no one gets to tell me what to do on it. It was early October, one of those crisp mornings that makes you think about chopping wood even if you've got a full propane tank. The kind where the silence isn't empty, it's layered. Trees creak, birds scold you for existing. There's always a squirrel trying to rob your truck bed. I parked next to the old garage, the metal roof half caved in from last winter's snow, and cracked open the back of the Tacoma. Cooler, tool bag, rifle case, and a bottle of good bourbon. Enough supplies for 5 days of solitude. I'd been looking forward to this trip for months. No customers, no emails, no HOA lunatics asking if 50 cal rifles count as decorations. Just me, the trees, and a wood-burning stove that moaned like an old man when it heated up. I was halfway up the porch steps when I noticed something odd. The access road, the one I'd personally reinforced with gravel 2 summers ago, now had a brand new wooden sign at the fork. Silver Elk Reserve, community zone beyond this point. Looked official, expensive paint. The hell was that supposed to mean? I'd driven that road since I was old enough to reach the pedals on my dad's truck. Community zone my ass. I ignored it for the time being. Figured it was a prank. Probably one of those weird seasonal campers who think the woods belong to everyone just because they bought a Subaru and read Thoreau once. Whatever. I had more important things to do, like chop up some firewood and see if the water tank hadn't cracked again. Later that day, after I'd hauled in the supplies, restocked the pantry, and swept the porch of pine needles and some very enthusiastic spider colonies, I drove into the nearest town, about 20 miles of switchbacks and coyote crossings. I needed ice and a few things I'd forgotten, coffee filters, lighter fluid, and more 308 rounds, just in case. Small town, 1 gas station, 1 general store, 1 local weatherman with 3 teeth, and a hobby of talking like the world's ending every Wednesday. I was chatting with a cashier I half knew. Girl named Riley, bright red nails, and the kind of bored expression that says she's halfway through mentally murdering her boyfriend when she asked, "So, you letting the HOA folks use your place this weekend?" I blinked. "The what now?" She shrugged, saw the post on the Silver Elk Facebook. Said your cabin was going to be part of the mountain hospitality circuit or something. You know, for the HOA summit. I stared at her like she'd started speaking Sanskrit. You're saying someone publicly posted that my private property up there on Bearjaw Ridge is open for community use? Guess so. She blew a bubble with her gum and popped it. Sounded fancy. Did it also sound like breaking and entering? She gave me a look like I'd just offered to pay with gold teeth. I just work here, man. I drove back faster than I should have. Every bump in the road sounded like someone already putting their feet on my coffee table. The sun was dipping low, the trees casting long shadows across the hillside. When I crested the ridge and saw the cabin still empty, no strange cars or camp chairs, I exhaled. False alarm. Maybe someone used my name without permission. Maybe it was a mistake or a prank. Either way, I wasn't laughing. That night, I cooked steak on the grill out back and stared at the stars through my whiskey glass. The wind was cool, and the pine trees whispered the kind of things you can only hear when no one's around. I had almost relaxed. Almost. Then came the next morning. A little after 10, I was chopping kindling by the side shed when I heard tires crunching over gravel. Not wildlife, not some neighbor with a question about elk season. These were city tires, slow, confident, and stupid. I stood still, axe in hand, and waited until I saw it. A white SUV with the HOA logo on the side door. Not a rental. This was the real deal. Printed decals, tinted windows, rooftop flashers. Like they were responding to a suburban emergency involving rogue patio furniture. 3 people got out. Matching navy blue vests with reflective letters that read, Community Use Task Force. 2 men, 1 woman. All wearing sunglasses like they were here to negotiate a hostage situation. One of them held a clipboard. Another had a measuring wheel. The woman had a small tablet and a radio. They didn't look nervous. They looked entitled. The man with the clipboard approached like he was greeting a delivery address. "Hello, sir. Travis Holden." I nodded once. "You're on my land." "Yes, sir. I'm Eric with Silver Elk Reserve's Community Use Program. We're here for a brief assessment and notice delivery regarding temporary residential access under HOA Protocol subsection 12. I blinked. The hell does that mean in English? The woman with the tablet chimed in. "Your property's been identified as a suitable asset for guest lodging during the upcoming HOA retreat. You'll be hosting a delegation for 72 hours. Don't worry, we have insurance." I laughed, out loud. Let me stop you right there. This land's not part of any HOA. Never was. It's private. Been in my family since Roosevelt wore knickers. They exchanged glances. Clipboard guy turned a page. "It appears you used the Silver Elk maintained access road to reach the property. Under Clause 8, that constitutes acceptance of provisional community guidelines in emergency hosting situations." You made that up. "It's in our bylaws, sir, and I wipe my boots on your bylaws. You've got 5 seconds to back that truck out before I treat you like the trespassers you are." The measuring guy took a photo of my shed. I took one long look at him, turned without a word, walked into the cabin, and came out with my shotgun. Not pointing, just slung over my shoulder. Remington 870 walnut stock, carved initials on the grip, RJH, my father's. Their faces changed. You don't need to be hostile," the woman stammered, eyes flicking to the shotgun. "Ma'am," I said, calm as a still pond, "I'm on my property. You're on it too. The difference is I'm invited." Clipboard guy took a step back. "You can't threaten us." "I haven't. Yet." They backed toward their SUV like it was a lifeboat and I was the Titanic. Engine started. Doors slammed. They peeled out so fast they kicked dust all the way up the ridge. I watched them go without a word, the shotgun still resting on my shoulder. Then I walked back inside, poured a fresh cup of coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table to think. I didn't sleep well that night. Even with the wood stove creaking and the coyotes howling like usual, something in my gut felt off, like I'd stepped on a tripwire and couldn't hear the click yet. I kept replaying their faces in my head. The fake calm, the casual language, the way they talked like they already owned the place. And then there was that sign on the road. They weren't just bluffing. They had a plan. The kind of plan that depends on the other guy staying passive. But I don't do passive. Next morning, I checked my trail cams. I'd installed 3 last year, 1 above the drive, 1 by the woodshed, and a 3rd near the old fence line, mostly for wildlife. Now they served another purpose. Sure enough, the footage showed them walking around, snapping photos, pointing at things like real estate agents on meth. One of them had actually peered in through my living room window. I pulled the footage onto a thumb drive and stuck it in my jacket pocket. That afternoon, I needed to head into town again. I don't like leaving the cabin unattended, but I was running low on kerosene, and I figured a quick trip wouldn't hurt. Just down the mountain, grab supplies, back by sunset. I even debated asking a neighbor to check in while I was gone, but most people out here stay in their own lane. It's what I like about them. I was gone for 4 hours, maybe 5. The road was quiet, no sign of the white SUV. But the moment I pulled back up to the cabin, my gut twisted. The gate was open. I never leave the gate open. I killed the engine and stepped out slow. No birds, no wind, no normal sounds. I rounded the front of the cabin and saw the front door slightly ajar. My breath went cold. I didn't draw right away. I didn't need to. If someone was inside, they were either dumb, dangerous, or both, and I'd already met their type. Inside, the place looked like a frat house had spent the night. Beer bottles on the floor, muddy footprints. Someone had tracked dirt across the handmade rug my mother wove 30 years ago. Empty chip bags, a paper coffee cup from some chain in Carson City, a pair of hiking boots in the corner, and on the kitchen table, a laminated packet titled, "Welcome Delegates, Silver Elk HOA Mountain Retreat." It had an itinerary. Friday night mixer, Saturday group hike, Sunday closing remarks. There were names listed, cabin assignments. Mine was labeled Host Site Alpha. I stood there in silence, reading that trash like it had personally insulted my bloodline. In the bedroom, my bed had been used, blankets twisted, pillow stained with some stranger's drool. My father's photo was knocked over on the nightstand. In the fireplace, still warm, a charred piece of wood with someone's initials carved into it. HOA. They'd been here, slept here, eaten here, probably pissed on a tree I planted. And worst of all, someone had left behind a red baseball cap with the Silver Elk logo stitched in white across the front. I picked it up like it was radioactive. No note, no apology, just arrogance. I spent the next hour documenting everything. Photos of every boot print, every bit of trash. I checked my drone footage, and sure enough, just after sundown, a second white SUV had pulled up. 3 people got out, used a key, I have no idea how they got it, and made themselves at home. I zoomed in. One of them was that clipboard bastard. Another was new, some wiry guy with a buzz cut and a backpack full of what looked like party supplies. The third, Karen Westford, president of the HOA. Smiling like she was in a toothpaste commercial, they laughed, opened beers, took photos by the fireplace. One of them even toasted to community spirit. I called the sheriff's office. Dispatch was polite but useless. The woman asked if I had proof it was a forced entry. I said yes. She asked if I'd seen them do it in person. I said no, but I had drone video. She said I could email it and file a report online. I didn't want to file a goddamn blog post. I wanted someone in cuffs. While the wheels of justice creaked in bureaucratic agony, the HOA fired first. That night, a post went live on their official Facebook page. Success. Our HOA Mountain Outreach Program begins. It included a photo, my front porch, decorated with a cheap banner, Silver Elk Hospitality Cabin. The caption read, "A huge thank you to Mr. Travis Holden for voluntarily hosting the opening weekend of our new program. Community partnerships are what makes Silver Elk great." Voluntarily. The word hit like a slap. I scrolled through the comments. Neighbors clapped like seals. Amazing work. What a kind gesture. So glad Travis is helping build the future of our community. Helping. Jesus Christ. No one asked me. No one warned me. And now they were painting me as a cooperative host in their deranged little empire. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn the whole internet. Instead, I opened a bottle of bourbon, stood on my porch, and stared out into the trees. Then I saw the shadow. Something moved near the tree line. Brief, fast, low to the ground. A person? An animal. I couldn't tell, but I heard the snap of twigs. Soft footsteps. They were watching. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't over. This was just the opening move. I didn't call the cops again. Not that night. I already knew what would happen. A polite voicemail, maybe a callback in 3 days. And a form to fill out that ended up buried somewhere between coyote complaints and noise violations. This wasn't going to be fixed by playing nice. I'd spent enough years in uniform to know one thing for sure. When someone violates your perimeter, you don't send a letter, you send a message. Next morning, I went to work. I pulled my backup generator from the shed and charged all 3 drones. Took stock of the security cameras and shifted their angles to cover the full approach from the ridge. Then I dug into my storage lockers. Real deep. Hidden behind the stacks of canned food and toolboxes was a sealed plastic bin I hadn't touched in a while. Inside were spare plates of ballistic armor, 2 military-grade trail sensors, and a satellite uplink terminal I'd kept from a side project with a rancher who owed me a favor. Time to get eyes everywhere. By midday, I'd set a 3-layer perimeter. Cameras on trees, motion sensors along the footpath, and my favorite little toy, an old game caller rigged to blast a shotgun cocking sound if anyone crossed a tripwire at the gate. It didn't fire anything, just made trespassers rethink their life choices. While the equipment hummed to life, I called in reinforcements. First was Matt Delaney, private investigator and former deputy U.S. Marshal. I'd helped fix his Remington back in the day, and we stayed on friendly terms ever since. Matt wasn't just good, he was surgical. I gave him the basics: trespassing, fake documentation, organized break-in, and what I suspected was an internal plan to annex my land under HOA bullshit. He didn't even pause. Karen Westford? That's her. He whistled. She's been on a few radar screens. I'll dig. Second call was to Jessie Fuller, daughter of my dad's old attorney. She worked out of Reno now, smart, ruthless, and meaner than a Wolverine in traffic court. I sent her everything I had. Drone footage, the Facebook post, the HOA hospitality packet, and photos of the cabin after the break-in. Third call was to Ryan Gibbs, my buddy from Iraq, who now worked at the Nevada Department of Land Management. Not your typical pencil pusher, Ryan had a chip on his shoulder the size of Utah, especially when it came to bureaucrats trying to reclassify private land. He promised to check if Silver Elk had recently filed any geographic adjustments or annexation paperwork near Bear Jaw Ridge. By the end of the day, I had my own task force. Difference was, mine actually had teeth. That evening, while Matt was still digging, Jessie called back. "You're gonna love this," she said. Turns out Silver Elk HOA had submitted a proposal to the county zoning board 3 months ago. Hidden in all the fine print was a subsection called Community Reutilization of Underutilized Parcels. It was written in vague bureaucratic sludge, but the meaning was clear. If a property appeared vacant or was non-compliant with neighborhood participation, the HOA could petition to use it temporarily for community enrichment. It was garbage law. But in counties like ours, poor, under-resourced, and riddled with administrative shortcuts, no one had fought it until now. Jessie was already drafting a cease and desist, but she needed something harder to swing with. Matt delivered. He'd found a former HOA board member, a woman named Deborah Malloy, who'd resigned 6 weeks ago after a closed-door meeting where, according to her, Karen laid out a plan to expand Silver Elk's influence using the reutilization protocol. Deborah had disagreed, loudly, and quit. She still had screenshots of email chains, including one where Karen literally wrote, "Once Holden's place is documented as community used, it becomes precedent." Then we moved to Phase 2. Phase 2, Matt explained, was Silver Elk absorbing every property on the ridge. Mine was the test case. They were using me as the domino. I sat in my truck for a long time, staring out over the trees, watching the sun burn down behind the peaks. It wasn't just about me anymore. If they got away with this, they'd steamroll everyone, even the old-timers who barely had cell service, let alone legal counsel. Time to go loud. Next morning, I did 3 things. First, I compiled everything into a digital package, videos, emails, images, statements, and sent it to Jessie and Matt. Jessie sent it straight to the county supervisor with a warning that we'd pursue civil and criminal action if the HOA so much as looked at my property again. Second, I had Matt leak the Facebook video to a local news blog, then to a bigger one. Within 24 hours, headlines started popping up. HOA breaks into veteran's cabin, claims community right. Third, I printed out 20 color photos of the break-in and posted them on the gate with the following note: "This cabin is not community property. Unauthorized entry will result in prosecution. I live here. I am armed. I will defend what's mine." That night, someone drove past the bottom of the ridge and threw a brick at my sign. They missed. Next day, HOA fired back with a letter from a lawyer. They claimed I had voluntarily provided lodging, and the video on Facebook proved it. Jessie laughed for a solid minute when I forwarded it to her. That same evening, Ryan from the land department called. "Got something big," he said. Silver Elk HOA had attempted to adjust a parcel map, my parcel map, to list it as shared access transitional. But the request had been flagged because my land includes a sliver of protected forest corridor, part of a federal conservation program. That made it federal land adjacent, and anyone trying to seize it illegally? That's a whole different game. Now it wasn't just trespassing, it was attempted federal land fraud. I thought the next move would be legal. I was wrong. It came with a tent, a megaphone, and a goddamn coffee station. It was Friday morning. I'd just finished patching the side shed where someone had tried, and failed, to yank the lock off with a crowbar. The drone footage caught them the night before, hooded figures fumbling around with bolt cutters like a pair of drunk raccoons. They ran off after tripping the shotgun sound rig I'd wired to a motion sensor. That sounds a hell of a deterrent. Anyway, I was finishing repairs when I heard the rumble. Not one engine, several. I walked out to the ridge and squinted through the pines. 2 SUVs, 1 pickup truck, and a goddamn minivan, all marked with Silver Elk HOA decals. The convoy pulled up to the clearing just off my property, technically public land, but within visual range of my gate. Then they started unloading. Tents, tables, a folding banner that read, "Silver Elk Outreach Weekend, Community Wellness and Education Retreat." I could have laughed if it didn't make me want to shove my boot through the nearest car door. Karen showed up an hour later. Same white blouse, same fake smile. She posed for photos with a clipboard. handed out flyers to the other goons, then marched straight to my gate and zip-tied a laminated document to the post. I walked over, read it. Notice of participatory compliance. Holder Travis Holden. This parcel has been integrated into Silver Elk's Community Reutilization Initiative. Any efforts to obstruct or deny program operation will be regarded as interference with lawful HOA activity. It was laughable and illegal, but they didn't care, because 15 minutes later, the real fun began. People started arriving. Not HOA suits, civilians, middle-aged couples with fanny packs, college kids in Patagonia gear, 2 guys with guitars, a woman wearing yoga pants and holding a clipboard with a sunlight meditation schedule. I leaned on my gate, arms crossed, and watched this farce unfold like I was seeing a Walmart version of Burning Man. By sunset, at least 30 people were camped on the edge of my land. Some had set up hammocks. A group was cooking veggie kebabs over a fire pit they'd dug. The smoke wafted into my yard. Then came the drone. Not mine. This one was bigger, branded with the Silver Elk logo. It hovered overhead like some HOA surveillance vulture, filming everything. I spotted a guy with a laptop under one of the canopies. He was live streaming the whole damn thing. The caption? Community in action. Live from Holden Ridge. I walked out to the gate and shouted across the clearing, "Hey, you're on private land." Karen, standing by the table, waved like I was an old friend. "It's public adjacent," she shouted back. "We're not crossing your fence." I held up my phone, already dialing. "Let the county explain that to you." This time, I got through to Deputy Rusk, someone I actually trusted. He'd bought a custom holster from me 2 years back. Good guy. Ex-Navy. He showed up within 45 minutes, hat low, eyes narrow. Karen strutted over to greet him like she'd just won a PTA bake-off. "Deputy," she beamed. "We're here under full HOA jurisdiction, just a harmless community event." Rusk looked around. "You have a permit." Karen handed him a laminated badge. "We filed for shared use assembly under Ordinance 6.3. Not on Holden's land, you didn't. But this is transitional buffer space." He held up a hand. "Ma'am, I'm telling you right now, you're interfering with private property. You're lucky he hasn't already called State Patrol." Karen blinked. "We're not on his property, technically." Rusk pointed to the fire pit. "That's 10 feet inside his boundary. And the drone's flying over his roof." She tried to argue, but he shut her down cold. "I'm not here to mediate HOA fantasies," he said. "Either you wind this circus down, or I'll have every tent off this ridge before sunrise." I'll give her credit. She didn't blink. She didn't comply either. She smiled, nodded, and said, "Understood, Deputy." He left. And 2 hours later, the music started. They rolled out a Bluetooth speaker and blasted acoustic covers of the Eagles while people danced around glow sticks and took selfies with the mountains in the background. It was a performance. For the cameras, for the viewers, and for the narrative. They wanted footage of me losing it, of me screaming, threatening, going full angry vet on camera. They wanted the optics. I didn't give it to them. Instead, I went inside, opened the bourbon, turned off the lights, and waited. Next morning, the camp was gone. Just gone. Trash left behind, burn marks in the grass. Someone had pissed on my wind chimes. But the tents, the people, the signs, they'd packed up in the night like a traveling cult. No apology, no warning, just a new post on their website. Thanks to Mr. Holden for his generous spirit and for allowing us a peaceful weekend of reconnection and healing. They added a fake testimonial, supposedly from me. Happy to see the land being appreciated by good folks. Silver Elk brings real meaning to the word community. I stared at the screen and actually laughed. Just one hard, dry laugh. Then I forwarded the page to Jessie. She called 5 minutes later. "They want war? They just kicked the door in." "Good," she said, "because we're about to drop the hammer." It started with a knock, not at the front door, at my firewall. Monday morning, I woke up to a flood of emails. Half were spam. The rest were alerts. My website had been flagged for suspicious content, my payment gateway suspended, and my business page temporarily disabled on multiple platforms. Then came the one that mattered, a cease and desist notice from Holden Tactical Supply Co. Not mine. A brand new LLC filed just a week earlier, claiming they were the rightful owners of the trademark, and I was infringing. I read the email 3 times. Dead silent. Karen had tried to cancel my cabin. Now she was trying to cancel my name. Jesse confirmed it. Silver Elk HOA had filed multiple noise complaints and community concern reports about my business. Claims of dangerous rhetoric, militant behavior, and unstable veteran activity. They even submitted clips from my own YouTube videos, range tutorials I filmed years ago, and edited them to look like threats. I wasn't just fighting for my land anymore. I was being digitally erased. Meanwhile, Matt had been digging deeper, and what he found made my blood freeze. Karen had doctored old parcel maps, inserting fake annotations showing shared maintenance paths across several properties, mine included. These maps were submitted to the county as part of an infrastructure grant application meant to secure public funds for Silver Elk's expansion efforts. The grant, $1.2 million approved pending site verification. They weren't just trespassing. They were getting paid for it. I drove straight to the county office and asked to see the application. After a solid hour of stonewalling, the clerk, some poor guy in a moth-eaten flannel, gave me a copy. It had Karen's signature, 3 fake notarizations, and the line that nearly made me black out. The Holden parcel has already participated in community programming with zero resistance. Zero resistance. I filed for a full injunction that same day. Jessie moved fast. She filed a temporary restraining order, not just against Silver Elk HOA, but against each individual board member. The claim? Trespassing, defamation, forgery, fraudulent use of federal grant systems, and identity misappropriation. Within 48 hours, we were in emergency hearing. The courtroom was small, just one judge, a clerk, and 3 tired bailiffs. Karen sat across from me in a beige pantsuit, like she was attending a bake sale. She smiled like we were old schoolmates. Her lawyer, some slick-haired guy with an $8,000 watch and a moral compass forged in hell, tried to argue community precedent. Jesse countered with drone footage, the fake LLC filing, the doctored maps, and Deborah Malloy's testimony via Zoom. The judge didn't rule immediately. Instead, he asked a question that changed everything. Is the Holden property within proximity to any protected zones? I looked at Jesse. She nodded. Then I looked at Ryan, who had just arrived from the Department of Land Management. He stepped forward, opened his briefcase, and dropped a bomb. Holden's property borders a federally protected migration corridor under Title 16 U.S. Code Paragraph 678. Any unauthorized structural expansion, usage modification, or land encroachment without permit is a felony offense. You could hear the air go out of the room. Karen's lawyer objected, bluffed, barked. The judge ignored him. Then I'm issuing a full injunction pending federal review, he said. All HOA activities on or adjacent to Holden land are suspended effective immediately. Trespass will be prosecuted as a federal crime. Karen didn't smile after that. But she wasn't done either. That evening, I returned to the cabin. The gate was chained, not by me. A fresh padlock, a laminated notice zip-tied to the fence post. Property sealed, pending federal investigation, access restricted. At first, I thought it was legit, until I noticed the seal. It wasn't the Department of the Interior, it was a photocopy of the U.S. Forest Service emblem, off-center pixelated, and signed by someone named Agent M. Westerly. I checked the name. No such agent. The padlock snapped under a few seconds of bolt-cutter persuasion. I tossed the fake notice into the fire pit. They were faking federal action now, which meant they were running out of cards. Jesse called. They're panicking. Matt texted. More to come. Keep watch. Ryan emailed. You've got their backs to the wall. Next move will be dirty. He was right. I wasn't dealing with an HOA anymore. I was dealing with a cult that had lost control of the narrative, and they were ready to burn the house down on their way out. The courthouse smelled like stale coffee and frustration. That's where I found myself again, a week after the injunction, this time under brighter lights, more cameras, and a federal badge clipped to my visitor's pass. What started as a skirmish over property lines had escalated into something far bigger. The judge's ruling had triggered a formal investigation from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and now we weren't in county court anymore. We were playing in the big leagues. The irony? All Karen had to do was back off. Instead, she walked straight into a bear trap, one she helped build. Ryan and his colleagues from the Department of Land Management submitted a full complaint detailing fraudulent manipulation of federal grant paperwork. Silver Elk's application for the $1.2 million funding, It cited properties, including mine, that they had established usage of. The supporting documentation was compiled by a land surveyor who didn't exist. The contact phone number went to a burner cell registered under a shell company tied back to Karen's husband. And it got worse. Matt dug up footage from the weekend HOA had occupied my cabin. His drone captured clear video of Karen herself stepping onto my porch, unlocking the front door with what looked like a copied key, walking in, and, this part was gold, raising a red solo cup and saying, "To the future Silver Elk Lodge." There was also audio of another board member sitting by the fire and saying, "He's gonna sue the hell out of us if he finds out." The final nail. One of the delegates from the outreach weekend, some 20-something kid who just wanted Instagram clout, posted a vlog about the experience. In it, he clearly says, "I think we weren't actually supposed to be here, but whatever. It's free booze." And the HOA lady said the guy who owns this cabin was cool with it. The kid tagged the location. Thousands of views. The moment Karen took the stand in federal preliminary hearing, Jesse stood up and requested that the video be played. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with the patience of a grenade, nodded. The courtroom watched Karen toast to future Silver Elk Lodge in 1080p. Her expression didn't even crack, but the judges did. She leaned forward, removed her glasses, and said, "Ms. Westford, are you prepared to clarify your legal authority in conducting this event on property you did not own, lease, or receive permission to enter?" Karen tried to spin it, of course. Something about community stewardship and shared resource interpretation. Her lawyer babbled about emerging definitions of urban-suburban buffer zones. It was like watching toddlers try to build a plane mid-flight. The judge raised her hand and said flatly, "Stop." Then she ordered a full criminal review for falsification of federal documents, 18 U.S.C. Yidurayer 1001, unauthorized usage of protected lands, unlawful entry, and fraudulent misrepresentation of jurisdiction. The courtroom turned quiet after that, but outside, all hell broke loose. The press got wind of the hearing. Local news, then regional outlets, then a piece on national morning cable. Headlines screamed, "Veterans Land Targeted by Rogue HOA Scheme," "Silver Elk Scandal, Fake Permits, Real Crimes," and best of all, Karen faces federal heat for cabin takeover. Karen naturally tried to fight back. She called a press conference. Big mistake. She stood in front of a tiny podium set up outside HOA headquarters, flanked by two grim-faced board members, and started lecturing about misunderstandings, administrative overreach, and smear campaigns. Mid-speech, a reporter held up a tablet, playing the leaked cabin footage. Karen's face went flat. Then came the question, did you or did you not break into Mr. Holden's home and host an unpermitted event? She stumbled, fumbled, tried to redirect. That's when the FBI showed up. Two agents, badges out, calm, professional. They walked past the cameras, said a few quiet words to Karen, and led her to a black SUV. No cuffs, just presence. But the message was loud and clear. She was under formal investigation, not civil, criminal. That night, I sat on my porch, watching a storm roll in across the ridge. Thunder cracked, low and deep, echoing down the valley like a growl. I sipped whiskey from my father's old metal cup and let the silence settle around me. Then my phone buzzed. It was Jessie. "The federal judge wants to accelerate the full hearing," she said. "They think Silver Elk may have targeted other properties with similar tactics." "How many?" She exhaled. "Over 24." I stared out at the treetops. This wasn't about my land anymore. It was about every single person they'd tried to steamroll. And now it was our turn. The sound of the chopper was the first thing I heard that morning. It wasn't loud, more like a distant wasp, but unmistakable. Government blades. I stepped onto the porch, coffee in one hand, Glock in the other. Old habits. Sure enough, a Forest Service bird swept low across the ridge, circled once, then banked east. Not over my cabin, but near it, watching, mapping. They weren't here for a sightseeing tour. After Karen's detainment, everything escalated fast. The DOJ announced a task force review of Silver Elk HOA and similar quasi-government community organizations. Apparently, Karen wasn't the only one who'd tried to forge jurisdiction through HOA bluffs and bureaucratic smoke bombs. Her case just happened to be the match tossed into the gasoline. In the meantime, my property had become a fortress, and not just mine anymore. Other landowners started reaching out. Neighbors I barely knew, retired folks, farmers, families who thought the HOA was just a bunch of newsletter writers and lawn inspectors. Turns out, Silver Elk had filed community access petitions on at least 16 private parcels along the southern ridge. People had ignored the letters, thrown away the paperwork. Now they understood the game. They wanted in on the fight. I called a meeting, no formalities, just a folding table, 2 coolers, and a box of jerky on the front porch. 13 people showed up. Some brought their kids. Others came with printouts, photos, drone footage. One guy, an old Vietnam vet named Ronnie, showed up with a 35mm camera and a spiral notebook from 1989 filled with hand-sketched parcel lines and boundary markers. This, he said, tapping the map with a weathered finger, was never Silver Elk's land. Not then. Not now. For the first time, we weren't just reacting. We were organizing. With Jesse's help, we filed a class action civil suit against the HOA board and its umbrella organization, Silver Elk Holdings. The list of charges grew by the hour: fraud, trespass, unlawful seizure of property, defamation, conspiracy to commit regulatory evasion. The damages sought? $14.6 million, but money wasn't the point. The point was exposure. So I went public. I gave an interview to a local radio host, some prepper type with a loyal following and a gravel voice like he drank bleach for breakfast. I told him everything, from the fake hospitality packet to the Facebook live streams, from the fake federal notices to the doctored maps. He posted it the next day. It hit 2 million views by the evening. The internet did the rest. Suddenly, I was getting interview requests. Veterans groups offered support. One senator's office even reached out, asking for a briefing on civil overreach by unregulated private associations. Jesse told me to play nice, so I did. But I never changed my tone. I wasn't here for politics. I was here to put my boot down. And that's when the final act began. Matt called me one night, voice tight. They're lawyering up, hard, big firm out of Sacramento. They're trying to argue that the whole thing was an unauthorized initiative by Karen acting outside the board's approval, throwing her under the bus. Fast and hard. They're claiming she forged board documents, ran rogue. They want immunity for the rest of the HOA. It was a bold move and a stupid one. Matt had obtained internal board emails that showed multiple members knew about the plan, even coordinated logistics. One guy ordered catering for the outreach event. Another scheduled maintenance rotation for a property he didn't own. There were receipts. We were ready to detonate. Jesse prepped a subpoena list that read like a hit parade of HOA frauds. Depositions were scheduled. The federal court date was locked in. And then, Karen flipped. Facing federal time and mounting pressure, she offered a full confession in exchange for reduced sentencing. Names, dates, phone numbers, everything. Her testimony placed 5 board members at the center of the operation. She admitted to forging entry permissions, fabricating compliance logs, falsifying grant documents, staging community participation events for photos, and personally directing the break-in of my cabin. Matt got the transcript. I read it twice. She called me an obstacle with optics. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't want revenge. I wanted precedent. I wanted every HOA goon across the country to think twice before slapping their logo on someone's fence. The next step was obvious. We would take them to court, not to argue, not to bargain, to finish it. The courtroom was federal, high ceilings, heavy oak, and silence so thick it made your ears ring. I sat at the plaintiff's table in a clean shirt and boots that had stomped through mud, blood, and bureaucratic horseshit. On my left was Jesse, steel-eyed and ready. On my right, Ryan and Matt, each armed with stacks of evidence that could bury an entire real estate firm. Across from us, what was left of Silver Elk. 5 board members. Their suits didn't help. One guy still had sunburn from the outreach weekend he swore he never approved. Their new lawyer, a gray-haired ex-prosecutor with ambition leaking out of every pore, tried to play the rebranding card. This was the result of rogue leadership, he said, not an institutional conspiracy. The remaining board members were misled. Then the screen lit up. Jesse had arranged everything. Emails, videos, financial records. One by one, each lie Karen had told was traced directly back to the board. Catering invoices, logistics memos. Internal newsletters marked confidential with headings like expanding community asset utilization without resistance. And then, at the center of it all, Karen's confession. It was played in court. Uncut. Yeah, we used Holden's place as a test. He wasn't using it much. It was perfect. Honestly, the only mistake we made was underestimating how fast he'd push back. The jury, 6 men, 6 women, none of them HOA members, sat stone-faced. They didn't need more. It took them 4 hours. Verdict, guilty. On all counts, criminal conspiracy, fraudulent federal filings, trespassing with intent, malicious misrepresentation, and defamation. Karen got 16 years, no parole for the first 8. The rest of the board received bans from holding positions in any housing or community association in the U.S. for 25 years. Silver Elk HOA was dissolved by court order, their assets seized, their properties liquidated to repay damages. And the money. We didn't want it. Every plaintiff in the class action suit voted to send the awarded funds, $9.3 million after legal fees, to a veterans legal defense network, one that protects property rights and sues corrupt HOAs pro bono. That was the final punch. As I stepped out of the courthouse, the sky was the same color as the one over my ridge. Blue, sharp, open. Reporters swarmed, microphones everywhere. I gave one statement. This was never about a cabin. It was about drawing the damn line. Then I got in my truck and drove home. The ridge was quiet again. Pine needles underfoot. No banners, no glow sticks. Just wind and birds and that slow, steady drip of melted snow off the eaves. I rebuilt the gate. Not just replaced, reinforced. Steel posts, dead-bolted lock, motion lights tied into my new security network, one powered by solar panels, and enough backup to survive an apocalypse. And the sign. I mounted it myself, right under the new security camera, burned into a sheet of walnut, bold letters carved deep, hospitality by invitation only. Trespassers will meet Mr. Remington. One afternoon, a local ranger came by, asked if I was going to host any more outreach weekends. I laughed so hard I almost offered him a beer. Almost. Now, when I sit on my porch with a cup of black coffee and the 308 across my knees, I know one thing for sure. They won't try again. No one will. Karen was the last fool to cross that line.